Hello, my name is Asma Al-Haddabi. I'm a team leader of strategic planning at ADNOC Gas Processing and a WiSER Pioneer alumna. WiSER stands for Women in Sustainability, Environment and Renewable Energy, and this platform was launched in 2015 at the United Nations General Assembly. Founded by Master, the platform is proud to have Abu Dhabi Global Market, the award-winning International Financial Center, as a principal partner. WiSER is an impact-focused platform dedicated in promoting gender equality and inspiring women to play an active role in addressing global sustainability challenges. WiSER aligns with UAE Government Vision 2021 of enhancing gender equality in the workplace and the United Nations 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development Goals. On behalf of WiSER Network, welcome to the second edition of the WiSER Wisdom Series, featuring our panelists Sheikha Shamma bin Sultan bin Khalifa Nahyan, CEO of Alliances for Global Sustainability, and Frodl, Corporate Board Director, Founder and CEO of DF Strategies, and moderator Liz Benesky, Executive Director and Chief Success Officer, AmCham Abu Dhabi. Thank you for joining us today. I'll hand over to our moderator, Liz Benesky. Enjoy the session.
Thank you, Asma, and good afternoon, everybody. As Asma said, my name is Liz Benesky, and I'm the Executive Director of AmCham Abu Dhabi, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I extend a warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining. It's great to have such a diverse group from around the world come together for this event. Just before you all signed up, we asked if you believe that there are enough women in leadership roles, and we've got some poll results back I'd like to share with you. 68% of you do believe there are enough women in leadership roles, and 15% said no. The remaining percentage had no comment. But this opens up the conversation for today, and we're going to get right into it. So I'm going to start first with Sheikha Shamma. Good afternoon, Sheikha Shamma. The UAE has made impressive strides in gender equality for a country that is only 49 years old. This year saw a number of impressive achievements. Half of the members of the UAE cabinet are women, and the UAE is the leading in the Arab world in the UNDP Gender Equality Index. As an active board member and advocate for women on boards, would you please provide the regional perspective of the current state of women on boards?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Liz, for the kind introduction and for starting us off with an especially important observation. The UAE has indeed been incredibly progressive in this respect, despite being a relatively young nation. I believe that this has been predominantly driven by our leadership, who have ensured that the fundamentals of gender parity were embedded in the DNA of the UAE, its formation. In fact, our founding father, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan and Nahyan, may his soul rest in peace, was perhaps one of the greatest advocates for gender parity, once said, I quote, "I hope that the women in my country will follow their sisters in those countries which have previously made the adjustment to the procession of progress and development." End quote. Today, not only are we leading in some areas, and in others, we're on par with our counterparts across the globe, but we are taking the lead in launching new initiatives to move this agenda forward in the region. An example is the UAE's Gender Balance Council. They introduced the first gender balance guide, which is based on the best practices from OECD countries, with the aim of helping organizations create gender-sensitive environments that empower both men and women to participate across all sectors. The UAE also, as a regional leader, has bridged the gender pay gap, and that was recognized by the World Economic Forum report, which was published earlier this year. And then this was reinforced with the national decree that came out last month, mandating equal pay for men and women in the private sector. So that's something for us to celebrate. On a more regional level, although 49% of the MENA population is female, a report by the OECD showed that the average representation of women on boards of the largest 142 public companies remained rather modest at 4.8% of total voting board seats. It did show that there are at least one female board member on 31% of boards. So there's a lot of work to be done. And as you mentioned, female representation on boards is an area that I am personally invested in progressing. We launched on International Women's Day the 20 for 2020 initiative, and we have been diligent in our mission to create a pathway for women to acquire merit-based board positions through opportunities for networking, mentorship, and of course that hands-on experience.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Sheikha Shamma. Deb, let's go to you. Globally, we are transforming the boardroom, and it is resulting in improved financial performance and social impact. So, Deb, how can we accelerate this progress on gender diversity like we're seeing in the UAE?
Thanks, Liz. You know, transforming the C-suite and the boardroom for increased gender diversity is not going to happen on its own. We know that. There must be multiple drivers that support that acceleration on gender diversity to get at the levels of C-suite and boardroom, and that requires country, state legislation, regulatory requirements, investor mandates, ESG, and beyond. It requires conversations like we're having today so women can help women as well make that progress. There is some good news, and Sheikha Shamma did share some of this. We are making global progress. We have 20% of the women now serving on boards. It's up 2% increase year over year. But at that pace, it is going to take us 3 decades for parity. There are so many talented women in the world today, and this is just such a missed opportunity from a company, an economy, as well as social impact perspective. And so having the discussions today, there's always a learning, there's a new connection to help us forge ahead and accelerate progress.
Fantastic. So back to you, Sheikha Shamma. Considering that there are over 28,000 UAE business licenses currently issued to women, that represents approximately 30 billion dirhams to our economy. Why do you believe that there are still less than 5% female chairpersons serving right now on UAE boards?
I think even with initiatives in place to empower women in business, whether as entrepreneurs or leaders in organization, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And this is not just in the UAE, it's a global issue. Even today in many male-dominated industries, one of the greatest challenges faced by women is that they're not even being considered for board level positions, as the majority of decision-making discussions were taking place in more informal settings, such as majlises, where women don't have a presence. In addition, many organizations will have one female board member, but quite often this is not enough. One voice may still be drowned out, but it's only when we see gender balance across boards that we will also see chairwomen serving on UAE boards. We must remember that we are not here to check a box, but to ensure fair representation. I also think there's been research conducted that say that you need at least 3 women on a board in order for the individual not to represent women in general, but if she's alone, she represents women as a whole. But if there are 3 on a board, that changes. She's no longer a minority, and their voices are heard.
Well, there's certainly strength in working together. I agree, Sheikha Shamma. Those are some great statistics. Now, you're at the helm of the 20 by 2020 initiative, which is dedicated to providing the skills training for women to prepare them for these very roles we're talking about in leadership and on the board. Can you share the challenges that the women in the UAE are currently facing and how the 20 by 2020 initiative platform is currently playing a key role in helping to pave the way for women who are interested in leadership?
I think the best way to answer your question would be to explain how the idea of the 20 for 2020 initiative was actually formed. The concept actually stemmed from an ideation session that we were hosting as More Equity, a platform that I launched in 2016 to enable more community projects and to bring female Emiratis and residents together for networking and knowledge sessions. And during this ideation session, we asked what needs to be done to help women climb the career ladder. And we received more than 100 ideas from that one session alone. And the reoccurring theme that emerged was a distinct gap between levels of experience and the requirements for board level positions. So in order to qualify as a potential board member, candidates needed to demonstrate prior experience. And so our third sector, which is also referred to as the non-profit sector, is quite nascent in the UAE. And so people didn't have a way to gain experience on boards. So we identified a number of key challenges that would help us bridge this gap. One, which was the networking and offering individuals opportunities to network with board members so that they're known to boards trying to seek talented women. The second one being experience. And so we realized that there are a lot of women that have C-suite sort of experience, but never sat on a board before. So through the program, they sit on a board throughout the duration of the program. And then the mentoring piece. And so they're mentored by board members. And that's how we built the 20 for 2020 program. And so it's not just corporate governance training. It takes a more holistic view to solve some of the challenges that women face in the UAE.
Very, very impressive, Sheikha. I'm going to switch to Deb here. Deb, there's no doubt that board diversity is increasing, but representation, as we've repeated here over the past few minutes, remains low. Globally, last year, only 20% of women did hold board positions, and thank God for Sheikha Shamma's 20 by 2020 initiative.
Right.
But Deb is an advocate, a well-known advocate for women on boards in the United States. Would you be so kind as to share your expertise on how women can prepare to get on boards and some of the key requirements that boards look for today?
Thanks, Liz. And just, you know, what Sheikha Shamma is doing in the region is so impressive and is so needed. And so I know on the webcast today, we have a variety of women at different stages in their career. And, you know, if you are early or mid-career, you know, the programs that are available regionally take advantage of them. And it is about building the foundation in your career journey, you know, seeking out the breadth and depth of experience, building your expertise, serving on whether it's industry or nonprofit boards. Those are all precursors to serving on corporate boards in the future. If you are board ready, you know, we have put together a bit of a toolkit. We will share this with the audience after the fact. But the first thing you need to do if you are at that stage in your career is to get board ready. What does that mean? It is very different seeking a board opportunity than it is a corporate leadership opportunity. You have to put together a different type of bio. Your LinkedIn needs to reflect that you are seeking, you know, board opportunities. You have to position yourself. What are your big three, you know, strengths that will add a value in the boardroom for discussion? So positioning yourself, getting yourself board ready, packaging yourself up is the very first step. Then it is about being educated. There are various associations here in the United States. It's associations like the National Corporate Directors, Women Corporate Directors. These are organizations that allow you to gain education on how to become a governance expert. There is thought leadership, there are webinars, there are specific classes and programs, as well as there's formal education. Universities like Harvard and Stanford and Kellogg have director-specific governance courses that will help you as well. That's an important area just to complement your work experience. And be proactive, as it's so nice to hear Sheikha Shamma in her program of connecting board members with aspiring, you know, potential board directors. You know, being proactive, understanding and looking at the landscape. What target companies interest you most? Do you know anybody there? Look at their leadership, look at their board, and even in your network, are there abilities to make connections? And of course, network. That is so important. Your network needs to be nurtured. You should treat it like an asset. You should continue to expand that network. And they are the ones that can help you at least look at some board opportunities. And what I have learned along the way with my network is, in the beginning, your positioning is so important. Write an email for them that they can cut and paste and pass on to somebody to connect you. Go that extra mile for those easy introductions within your network. It definitely will pay off. And the other thing too is you need to raise your profile. You need to be known. That means be a thought leader, speak at a conference, write an article for LinkedIn on what your position is. But just raising your profile is very, very helpful. What do boards look for today? You know, every board is unique, and the timing and the needs and the strategy all evolve. But there are table stakes requirements, and then there's differentiators. And table stakes are all those foundational things, with the credibility, the public perception of you, you know, your executive experience and expertise are all very, very important. And then on the differentiator side, it's very different than a corporate role. Are you a good cultural fit? Do you feel like it's a cultural fit for you? It's a very important factor on, you know, the boardroom dynamics. Culture is so, so important. And then it's all about the differentiators, the strategic perspective. What do you bring? And as women in sustainability, we bring a whole basket of understanding, expertise, and learning to that board discussion. And so, from a Russell Reynolds, they're an executive recruiting firm, the top 5 remain industry expertise, finance, active executive, or past executive are in the top handful of initial requirements. So it's all about building blocks, to the boardroom and taking advantage of programs like in the region and building your network.
Fantastic. And let's continue one other thought. Staying with the theme of culture, and since we're here at the WiSER series today, in recent months, we've seen a renewed focus on the topic of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, as we like to call it. So drawing on your experience, can you share your insights on the ESG movement, how it relates to gender diversity, and how is it a key driver to increasing the number of women on boards?
It's a great question. And, public companies are facing growing investor pressure to improve diversity in their director ranks, underscoring, greater awareness around what needs to be addressed in ESG. Investors are increasingly incorporating assessments around the company's gender diversity and equity to really determine are they able to manage the ESG risks and opportunities in the future? There is so much external pressure on companies today, from the institutional investors, the activists, potential employees, and customers, to increase that representation in the boardroom, but across the C-suite and the executive level. So it's really up to companies if and how, those companies worldwide really adopt and, put these strategies in place. ESG has been a catalyst for change, and we are seeing it here, obviously in the States, but worldwide. You look at a company like BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world with $7 trillion under management. Last year they said we want a minimum of 2 women on every public company board. Goldman Sachs quickly followed this year by saying, I'm not going to take a US or a UK company public unless there's one, diverse board member, and that grows to 2 members in 2021. So institutional investors, policy leaders, they are focused on, changing the numbers in the boardroom and really driving specific change worldwide across these organizations. And they should. Right? We see all the business cases are there, repeatedly. Diversity is not just about, doing the right thing for the company and the culture. It brings better business outcomes. It drives better financial results, along with improved innovation and so many other benefits. So it is definitely, helping the movement. And I think it will continue to grow. And this audience and the talented women in the audience are positioned well to help boards in the future.
Great take on that. Thanks, Deb. Turning to Sheikha Shamma right now. Sheikha, your work encompasses a number of sectors, including technology, sustainability, finance, sectors in which historically women, have faced discrimination. I would like to hear your thoughts, please, on the qualities women have that contribute to their success in those named fields.
Thank you, Liz, for this question. You're very right in saying that these sectors have been traditionally been male-dominated, which is exactly what drove me to focus on driving initiatives that impacted change in these industries. It isn't about simply pushing for gender parity in these sectors for the sake of increasing female representation, but rather about giving anyone who has the talent, ambition, and technical knowledge to progress in any sector, regardless of gender. And so men and women alike can bring new and fresh perspectives to industries traditionally associated with specific gender roles, which only serves to shift the conversation, break boundaries, and encourage more innovative thinking. I did, however, come across a study by Korn Ferry. It showed that self-awareness and empathy demonstrated by women makes them more well-rounded leaders. And because of their high emotional intelligence, they help to create conditions that inspire team members to stay on and contribute to an organization in the long term. That particular study also found that women outperformed men in a number of areas, such as coaching and mentoring, influence, inspirational leadership, conflict management, organizational awareness, adaptability, teamwork, and achievement orientated. And so I believe that these are all fundamental qualities that should be recognized and valued in any sector. I also think it's important to acknowledge the women that have managed to build success in these fields against all odds. And I really commend their achievements and accomplishments and hope that their success is an inspiration for future generations of women who wish to enter these industries.
Great examples. And it does, studies have shown that women-led organizations report higher employee satisfaction, higher return on investment, and stronger overall performance. So, Deb, in your opinion, as a woman who has held numerous leadership roles, what are, to build upon what Sheikha Shamma said, some of the specific leadership traits that make women strong leaders and thus successful board members?
It's a great question, and this is why it's all about diversity, and it's not just gender diversity, but it's gender mindset and experience and all of that that's brought into the boardroom. And just to build upon Sheikha Shamma's comments, right, there's a handful of, and all of these are, a little bit subjective, but it's, women are more empathetic, higher, EQ, and there's much more humility in women, right? We don't spend the time tooting our horn. We're just working to accomplish and achieve and help the team and customers. Women tend to be more resilient, right? They overcome hurdles and challenges. We figure it out to move forward. And we're persuasive. We're influential, we're loyal, we're passionate. And those things carry through to the boardroom. We also have this inherent entrepreneurial spirit where we're willing to take some risks and turn challenges into opportunities. And all of these leadership qualities in the boardroom make for much richer discussion, decision-making. It allows women to ask very thoughtful questions from, a different angle, different experience. You just think differently. And I'll never forget my first board, the chairman said, you just think differently. And I'm like, I'll take that as a compliment. And it was so abundantly apparent as the first woman on the board in the boardroom. And so, embrace those leadership differences because they're very, very meaningful and be very helpful to the company and in long-term, just creating value and decision-making.
Excellent. Well, let's build upon that. So, Deb, once a woman has achieved that C and that E-suite level, you would think that board positions would, be the natural next step. But let's talk about the glass cliff. And let me explain that to the audience. The glass cliff, for those of you who don't know, is the cousin term to the glass ceiling. I'm sure all of us here know what the glass ceiling is. But the glass cliff means that women are elevated to positions of power when things are going really bad, really poorly. So, Deb, considering the world we live in today, it could bring a lot of opportunities for women, but why are women hesitant to jump off the glass cliff and take those opportunities? What's your insight on that?
So, it's a great, you watch it, it's happening, it's real. The glass cliff, and I'll ask Sheikha Shamma about this regionally as well momentarily, but being uncomfortable is not easy, but it makes us thrive as leaders. It is the way we stretch ourselves in leadership, and we should not fear it. We should take it as opportunity. Just sharing the leadership traits of women, we figure it out. We can solve. We always have team members that will join us and help us to solve in those corporate C-suite roles, and then it prepares you for the boardroom as well. But I think some of the things to be less fearful of making that transition is educate yourself. There is a difference between board service and being in the C-suite. The responsibilities in the boardroom, you are oversight. You are not management any longer. You are being thoughtful. You're asking questions. It's your wisdom that provokes discussion and debate and makes the best decisions for the company. So transitioning to the boardroom is not easy. It is a different role, and sometimes it takes time, but it should not stop you from doing it. We have to encourage women to come to the boardroom and share their expertise. It is so important for company relevance and long-term strategy for the stakeholders. And I should say, women deserve a seat at the table. They have done the building blocks of their experience. They have served on potentially other boards. They bring a lot to the boardroom that will be very, very beneficial. And the one piece of advice that I have for the audience, being that I was at GE, they didn't really allow us to be both corporate executive and join another, company board. It was just a, policy decision. But my encouragement is, while you are still working, go find your first board. There is so much mutual benefit. It will make you a better leader. You continue to stay extremely bringing new trends and ideas into that boardroom. But, be confident, take the challenge. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but, I say, jump off that cliff and do it. And, your network, your mentors, your sponsors will be there to support you along the way. And Sheikha Shamma, does this concept, does it exist in the UAE? Do you have things like that as well, like so prevalent here in the US?
In the UAE, I've heard many CEOs mention that, and chairmen mention that they can't find a woman for their board, but I've not heard of women being placed on boards during a difficult time in order for them to fail. So I've not come across that before.
Well, that's a great thing that the UAE is progressive, and maybe they've smashed the glass everything and we don't need new metaphors. But
That's
listen,
right.
audience, I know that it's wonderful to hear Sheikha Shamma and Deb's point of view, but let's go to our audience. And can you all please just take a moment to read the question on the screen and then vote using the button on the right side of your screen? It's the one with the 3 little lines on it. I'll give you a minute to answer it. We just want to take a quick poll. 1 minute. And I also want to say, while you're answering your poll question, ladies and gentlemen on the call today, that after this event concludes, I do hope you'll watch your email with a keen eye, as Deb alluded to the fact you'll be getting a fantastic handout about how to prepare to be on a board. You'll also receive this event, which is recorded, and as well as a variety of different assets and helpful tips and tools from WiSER. And we really want to take a moment to say thank you to WiSER. So I think our poll has now touched for 1 minute. And we asked, do women have equal access to opportunities that lead to positions on boards? We're just calculating those results, and we'll have them for you in just 1 minute. Background team, do we have the results ready? All righty then. We'll wait for those results and I'll chime in with them. Every minute counts on an amazing group such as this. So I want to start moving towards a summary because I see that the chat box in the QA is lit up with some good questions. So ladies, Sheikha Shamma and Deb, I would really like to know, it's really clear from all of this conversation today that women, really, all they really need to succeed is access to the right opportunity. So I'd like to end this portion of the whole thing by asking the both of you to share your advice to the women and gentlemen here present right now and those who will watch after, of all their ages and experience levels and education levels and the points on their journeys. How can they become better leaders? And how can they find the success that the both of you have achieved, continue to build upon, and will grow within? So we're going to start with Sheikha Shamma. If you would please kindly share a few thoughts, Sheikha Shamma.
Firstly, I'd like to say that it's not enough to work hard. It's equally important to work smart. As women, we have a tendency to do things by the book without considering whether there is a quicker, more efficient way to achieve the same result. This is where innovation stems from. And so I would encourage all women to work smarter and learn from those who have successfully made it onto boards. Their stories may inspire you to walk that path that you perhaps hadn't considered before. I also believe that women should not be afraid to show up and ask for what they want, whether that's advice, support, or access to new opportunities. Too often we set our own limitations based on past experiences, but until we are ready to initiate changes, we will not see results. And finally, I would say never give up on your dreams. Even when it seems like there are multiple challenges, remind yourself why you set out on this journey and just keep moving forward.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Sheikha Shamma. Deb, can you please share your thoughts with us?
That's a wonderful list, and let me build upon that as well. You know, everybody has a unique career journey, and it is really embracing the breadth and depth of experience, industry, functional, global experience that positions you well for the boardroom. I said it already, be uncomfortable, take those tough assignments, stretch yourself, raise the bar, you know, on your own leadership. That's how we grow as leaders. One thing that has always been near and dear to my heart personally is be a lifelong learner. Stay curious, be passionate. As Sheikha Shamma said, follow your dreams. Make sure you keep that part of you, because that makes you unique. And the one thing I want to really emphasize here is build sponsorships. It's not just having mentors, it's building sponsors that are your cheerleader, your champion, to support you along the way in the C-suite roles as well as board. And also be confident. Continue to build those muscles. You deserve a seat at the table. Continue to build your confidence, as well as nurture your network. It's so, so important. Your network will very much help you in the future. And one thing, that I have learned in my career journey is you have to pay it forward. You got to bring the next generation to rise. I'm so passionate about getting more women on boards. I'm passionate about ESG. And I just think that there's a huge intersection for both in the future.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, the time is flying by, and I want to eke out a few minutes for some questions and answers. I've been fast and furious here trying to select a couple, and we'll get to them in a second. But here's your poll results. Very interesting, I think. The question was, do women have equal access to opportunities that lead to positions on boards? So out of the 50 attendees, 87% felt the answer was no. It's quite telling. So something we will all hopefully take a little bit of information today from and build upon. So we're going to have just a couple of Q&As, and I want to assure you that all the questions are amazing in the comments. We're going to collate those for those we can't get to, and we're going to try to answer them with this panel after our event is ended and include them in that post-event for you package. So please, if your question if you don't get called upon, count on us to work our best to get it done for you in the post-event. So first, let me welcome Ms. Shamma Al-Jabri to ask the first question. Shamma, please feel free, go ahead.
Thank you, Liz. Sheikha Shamma, thank you for your insight. It was a wonderful discussion. By the way, I'm Shamma Al-Jabri from Abu Dhabi Global Market. As you know, ADGM launched its Gender Equality Initiative last year. The Gender Equality Initiative is based on 3 programs: leading by example, working collaboratively, and championing. We're also delighted to be partners with 20 for 2020 initiative together, national organizations in the UAE. To add on the discussion with regards to the challenges that women in the UAE are facing, in the workforce is still a challenge for Emirati women, our culture. What are your views on this, and how do you think we can break this limitation?
Thank you, Shamma, for your question. So, the Middle East as a whole has traditionally been a relationship-driven region, and certainly continues to be. In the past, and as I mentioned, networking opportunities, particularly in the business world, mainly stemmed from informal gatherings and discussions that took place in majlises, which women were not necessarily privy to. With the increasing number of women entering the workforce and taking on leadership positions, it's now important more than ever for us to consider how we can make networking more inclusive. This is one of the core drivers for initiatives such as more equity, which I spoke about earlier on, but also 20 for 2020, which reinforces the importance of networks created to support women that are backed by strategic partnerships with both the private and public organizations.
Thank you, Sheikha Shamma and Ms. Al-Jabri. Thank you very much. I've got time for probably one more question. So let's see. Next, Deb, this one will be for you. I have a question here from Adhari Al-Sirkal. Adhari, please go ahead.
Thank you, Deb. I'm Adhari Al-Sirkal, and I am an engineer in Abu Dhabi Distribution Company, and I am also a WiSER pioneer. First, I would like to thank Sheikha Shamma for the interesting conversation. My question to Deb: looking ahead, how can women in their careers journeys today prepare to make the boardroom a target? And how should they get there? What specifically should they focus on? And thank you both.
Thank you, Adhari. Thank you for the question. It's a great question, and we've covered a little bit of this, but you know, there's a handful of things as we take away today is, you know, the breadth and depth of your experience is very important and prepares you. So look for those opportunities to continue to stretch yourself, complement it with being involved with industry associations or nonprofit boards or maybe a startup board, so you have some landscape and understanding of what it is in, you know, to be in a boardroom. Invest in yourself, invest in education. You know, there's always an element in a board role of finance. Make sure you're ready. You know, governance. What does it mean to be an expert governance leader? And then, you know, it is so important as you go out into the journey to have your network, leverage your network, you know, you position, you know, your positioning statement to help them, and then, you know, find your first board. But my advice is be patient. It does take time. Your first board is always the most difficult board to find, but then it follows. And so whatever the right time is to jump and make that transition to the boardroom, whether you're still active in your career or it's a next chapter strategy, you know, be patient. It does take some time, and it should be at your decision as well. Don't just take anything. Make sure it's the right cultural fit, the right company for you, that you feel good about it all. It is a mutual two-way street when it comes to the board. So it's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adhari. Really appreciate it. I wanted to share a comment to our panelists here. So Sheikha Shamma and Deb, listen to this. A very astute comment by Melanie Johnson. She said, a comment to help accelerate more women on boards. Engage with women-owned businesses that headhunt other women for senior positions. A really great idea. And I hope that as all of you continue your journey, you'll keep that really good suggestion in mind, because it's true. We're stronger together. We are a sisterhood, and we should help one another. We've got an extra just about 3 minutes so I'll say 4 minutes. I'd like to ask Deb for just her closing 2 minutes, and then I'll follow up with Sheikha Shamma for some bonus pearls of wisdom, and then I'll close and conclude the event. So Deb, some final and parting thoughts, please.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity today. It is always such a privilege to connect with women around the world and talk about these very important global challenges that we're facing. And it is so important for us to work together, stay networked, ask for help. We can do this. We will be successful. It is beyond the right thing to do on so many levels for companies and the social impact that it brings. And I am just really grateful and look forward to the opportunities to stay connected. And if there's any way that I can be helpful to any of you, please let me know.
Thank you. And Sheikha Shamma, please.
Thank you all for attending, and I do believe that we need to support one another in order to make a tangible difference and change what was previously known as the norm to this new norm which is having more women on boards and allowing for her voice to be heard and accounted for. We recently, about a month ago, launched it's an exclusive networking group of women on listed boards, and we brought that community together, many of whom didn't know one another. And so I think if someone is serious about having a board career, that's a great place to start, to know who are those women on listed boards, and approaching them for advice and yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I personally want to say a huge thank you to Sheikha Shamma and to Deb and to all the fine attendees that joined WiSER. I'm a big fan of all the things that WiSER does. So what a wonderful way to utilize 60 minutes of your day today. I'd like to thank our panelists, the WiSER organization. And on that note, we now conclude the second edition of the WiSER Wisdom Series. We hope you found it engaging and enlightening, and you've got a few pearls of wisdom. Well, don't forget, they'll be sending you a survey shortly to you. We appreciate your feedback. That's how the WiSER folks build these wonderful opportunities. And thank you again, our esteemed guests, for giving us your time, your treasure, your talent, sharing your knowledge. Thanks to everyone who invested an hour of time with us. And we really thank you for contributing to today's conversation. We hope to see you at the next WiSER series. Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone, and we'll all get through to the new normal. Take care. Goodbye now. Thank you.